Am I really gonna pay $30 for this? Yep. It's time to set out on a really epic actually, I don't know if epic's the right choice of words here. It's time to set out on a really effed up quest where you guys, yes you, my subscribers, forced me to find the world's worst RPG. And with that said, this video is sponsored by Dreamatrix, the developers of Legends of Dawn I'm just messing with you guys. This video is sponsored by me, so give me all your money. After a couple Google searches for the worst RPG in existence, let's just say Legends of Dawn made a few appearances. So in today's video, I'm going to jump right in and try to see for myself what this game is truly all about. Now, I did try to refrain from actually reading any reviews because I want to stay as unbiased as I possibly can and really go in with an open mind. It really does suck that it actually was $30, but maybe I'll end up getting my money's worth. If you guys enjoy watching me suffer playing RPGs, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's jump right in. Before purchasing a game, you should always read what the game is and what exactly the developers are advertising. So let's take a quick look at the Steam page and their trailers. The first thing you may notice is that this game came out in 2015, but if you read down here at the bottom, Legends of Dawn Reborn is actually a re-release of Legends of Dawn. Apparently, Dreamatrix was developing a game called Wave of Darkness, and the early access players seemingly liked it much more than Legends of Dawn. And because of this, the team discontinued Legends of Dawn, revamped it on the new engine that they were creating Waves of Darkness on, and then re-released it as Legends of Dawn Reborn. I wonder how Wave of Darkness looks. Oh, we might have to save that for next video. After reading the description, I'm now expecting to be adventuring in the brutal northerly reaches of Nar with my magic sword and my wits. The choice of what class I play is going to be entirely up to my own creativity. I'll be able to play without restrictions, and I shouldn't be stumbling upon invisible walls or loading screens. The environment is a stunning, picturesque landscape that will stimulate my mind. I should expect countless dungeons, camps, impressive docks, whatever the hell that means, magical regions that defy gravity, and of course bloodthirsty monsters. Let's hear what the devs said in their Kickstarter vid.
Hi guys, I'm Zrinka, and I'm a game producer. I always loved RPGs on PCs, but I'm not completely satisfied with the games that are available today. We did not have a budget for fancy cutscenes or graphic effects. Instead, we focused on the game itself with its rich RPG elements. What sets Legends of Dawn apart is the freedom of play and freedom of direction and movement.
The game doesn't resemble to any classic games of this generation, but to a rather old-school style and feel with some unique features.
Okay, I'm actually kind of hyped right now. Start it up. The game starts off with a rather nice intro cinematic explaining how a powerful artifact known as the Dawn was created by the gods to keep peace and harmony in the lands of Nar. Eventually, a powerful conspirator found and stole the Dawn using dark magic. They couldn't completely destroy it, but they did shatter it into countless pieces that were scattered throughout the land. Eventually, the Dawn's power faded, darkness spread, and war began between all of the races. Of course, it's now up to you to find and realign the pieces, restore power to the artifact, which will ultimately save the world from destruction. Nothing really groundbreaking here, but not a bad start for the plot. This then brings you to the main menu and right into character creation, where you get the choice between male or female for the races of human, elf, and the Asari? Actually, it's the Danian race, Mass Effect reference. Oh, and one more race, the Eyeballs. Yep, I managed to glitch the game within a couple seconds by speed clicking the face presets, and it turns out that Eyeballs is a playable race. All in all, I ended up going with the human because I'm boring, and also because the elves have fucked up beards and the Danians don't have friends. Each race does give its own little bonuses to ability scores and or reputation with certain traders, but there's literally zero explanation as to what each ability represents in the game. A simple pop-up text would have certainly been nice here. I ended up just boosting vitality and dexterity with a side of strength and intelligence, screw charisma. Next up, we get to customize our appearance. Well, actually only 3 things. Hair, or should I say lack of hair color, and a few face presets. Turns out that almost every elven hair option you have to be 80% bald, and for the Danian race, you're 100% bald. which I do respect, don't get me wrong, but something tells me that one of the devs might have had a bad experience with a bottle of Rogaine. And that's pretty much it for character creation. Definitely not this game's strong suit, but as of now, not a big deal. It was at this point though that I noticed the rather nice character creation music spazzing the hell out. Our second bug has been encountered. Finally setting foot in the land of Nar. To my surprise, I learned that the game has voice acting, and honestly, overall it wasn't too bad depending on which NPC you were talking to.
Very good. You could buy me a beer now.
What the game needs though is the option to temporarily turn this off if you want to, or at least be able to turn it down without messing with other in-game sounds. It tended to be quite loud, and sometimes it could get a little annoying for the longer dialogues. According to a letter from our father, we have arrived in the village of Corden's Fall, where we are to watch over the equipment and also familiarize ourselves with the town. What he really meant to say was go be the town's bitch for a really freaking long time, while he's up north doing big bad soldier things in the mines. We both are apparently soldiers of the Royal Guard, and our king has sent us to figure out why the mines have been relinquished. Moving in this game, you can use WASD, or if you're a CRPG player, feel free to point and click. Both ways actually seem to work nicely, and you can also rotate the camera by holding down the right mouse button. All of this actually doesn't feel too bad, and dare I say, the character's running animation is better than some AAA games. Weapon animations, however, are a different story, and this might be the first game where the weapon animations alone might be what chooses my class. Shout out to Angie. I did have plans for using a bow, but once I picked one up, it looked pretty bad, and you could barely even see the arrow, so I scrapped that idea. If we take a look at my inventory, you can see that the different weapons have different stats and bonuses, and in all of the descriptions it tells you what skill you need to be able to craft that item, along with what resources are required. It seems like the crafting system has some depth to it, and it made me excited to look for resources and try it out. First quest, get this guy a beer. Can't complain. The village of Corden's Fall isn't the most visually appealing fantasy setting you've ever seen, but I did initially get that feeling of playing a more old school RPG. After digging through a few boxes, I got some cool stuff: potions, runestones, spellbooks, and weapons that needed to be identified. Seems like the game's got some real depth behind it. The further I got into the village, the uglier the game became. But I don't personally need great graphics, but what I do need is a game to give off some character. Unfortunately, the ugly roads, the ugly grass, and the things being spaced out too far from each other without many plot items around was not really the best start in this department. Upon arriving at the tavern, things started to look a little better, but what I didn't understand though is why selling weapons made of valuable iron from the mines still barely gave me enough to buy a damn beer. After giving our guy his beer, he told us that there's a monster infestation and we should go kill a spider, so I headed off. The map itself looked decent, matches the style of the game, but I started to feel a bit impatient as there is no sprint or jump for your character, and running to places already started to feel a bit tedious. After finding the tiny white spider, which doesn't look white, I quickly learned that combat is not this game's strong suit. You basically left click on your target to swing, but it's pretty slow, so you're kind of standing there awkwardly swinging until you or your opponent dies. So yeah, not a great combat system, but I still have a lot to try out, or so I thought, and I was still kind of getting the feeling of playing an old school game, which was nice in its own way. Then I went to go turn in the quest, but the guy says that I didn't kill the spider. So I walked all the way back to see if there's another spider, but I ended up getting sidetracked and found myself in a graveyard. This was all cool until the game froze when trying to save. Luckily, when restarting the game, it showed the load point in the graveyard. Woohoo! But when I clicked on it, I got this. After trying and failing in various ways to force quit the game, I ended up having to shut down my PC the hard way. I'm still staying pretty positive at this point, but I'm starting to remember that this is not only supposed to be an improved re-release, but it's also been out for 6+ years and I paid $30 for it. The game will be judged accordingly. I ended up exploring the dungeon and running into a couple traps. The camera was a little wonky, but it was still fun. I got to a point where I couldn't go any further as it looked like I needed a special key, which is cool because it gives me a reason to return. On the way out of the dungeon, you exit through the tile that does not have the stairs. Not a big deal, but why have it do that? After talking to a guy in the market, well, he was pretty annoying, so I couldn't focus, and I decided to read the dialogue after he was done giving me his spiel. Well, turns out that it's actually really hard to read a small box when the camera keeps spinning and spinning and spinning and... spinning. Shit was making me dizzy, man. He basically wanted me to fetch something for him, and surprise, word apparently travels fast in this town, and nice guys never win. And next thing you know it, the whole damn village is telling me to get this and get that and hurry up. If Uber Eats or DoorDash was around, I would have made a killing in this game. Even with the fetch quests, the bugs, and the rather ugly world, I was actually still having fun, which is what really matters here. And when I went looking for some wood, I was also able to turn in the initial spider quest. Something that I was enjoying to a certain extent, and that's the key phrase here, is that the game was making me use my brain and figure things out on my own as opposed to giving me a golden path to everything like many modern games seemingly do. It's nice to experience this, and I do respect developers that go this route knowing that it might take away from the game's mass appeal. These types of games can feel very rewarding. But I also want to mention that after 4+ hours of playing at this point, I still had an empty skill bar and absolutely no effing idea how to make a damn spell, even though I've been picking up countless rune stones that say they make spells. I should also mention that apparently the axe that I equipped ended up being cursed, and it says that I cannot unequip the cursed weapon until I find the oracle stones and do a few other things. Cool, right? A cursed weapon, and the game's gonna make me find a way to break the curse, and then I can finally use the weapons that I want to. Well, it was cool for about 20 minutes or so, and then the next thing you know it, 2 or more hours have passed and I still have the stupid cursed weapon glued to my right hand, and I should also mention that I still don't know how to make a damn spell. I love having to figure things out, but this is starting to get a little ridiculous and it's losing a bit of the fun factor. And this is coming from a player who tends to like more hardcore type of games. At this point, I still have no idea what the hell an oracle stone is, nor do I recall an NPC mentioning it to me. If they did, well, I missed it, and that's my fault. But what am I supposed to do now? Start flicking my bean with my left hand? I mean, you know what I'm saying here? Obviously the answer is somewhere, but I've already done a ton of fetch quests and I'm not really in the mood anymore to go to every single NPC in the area and try to decipher if one of them happened to mention an oracle stone, with no guarantee that they ever will because sometimes dialogue lines will never repeat themselves. In my opinion, instead of the game being challenging to figure out, it started to feel more like bad game design. On top of this, doing quests started to become really confusing, as one NPC may tell you to go talk to someone, but if you've already talked to that someone before, the NPC would not recognize that. Oh yeah, and one more thing, the NPC told me my father was dead, but it didn't really seem like he was supposed to know that at this point. It just didn't really make sense in the dialogue. Another thing about the quests is that there's no easy to read quick quest summaries. If you want a reminder as to what you need to get for a specific quest, you have to read through the 15 lines to find the part where it tells you what you actually need. And this became quite tedious, especially when you had multiple fetch quests, and you have to keep referencing them to remember what items you need for each individual quest. If the box just simply had something that said you have like 0 out of 5 wood collected, it would have been a huge quality of life improvement and saved me a lot of frustration and time. When leveling up and distributing ability points, I still had no idea what exactly each ability means. I've had no idea since character creation. I can guess what strength does, and I can assume things such as dexterity probably helps with ranged weapons, but many games do handle these abilities in different ways. There's no reason why a pop-up box can't be present here to explain this, especially something as important as leveling up your character, so I ended up just kind of guessing and having no idea what I was doing. Let me cool off for a second though, because I want to say that even with all the frustrations, it was still cool to be in this new game's world. This game's giving off a little bit of charm right now, it really is. Wow. And I was motivated at this time to continue to play. The emerging problem, though, is that these frustrations are starting to add up. It feels like a ticking time bomb. Music in the game was pretty nice. It was relaxing and mostly immersive, but only when it was working good. Sometimes songs would overlap other songs, or I would be fighting a weenie little spider and the game would play music like I was Gandalf the Grey fighting the Balrog. Another thing that I noticed was that when I went to buy some bags to increase my inventory size, the numbers made no sense and it became a guessing game as to how many slots a bag you buy will actually give you. For example, this dwarven bag says 3 slots in its description. Well, it actually gives you 14, kind of a big difference. Once I finally managed to somehow find a more epic sounding quest to go to the north and find a ranger, I knew that my journey was about to turn into an epic tale of zoo fucking tycoon. Holy shite. I've never seen this many creatures or monsters, whatever you want to call them, this closely placed to each other on a game's map. Last time I checked, wolves should be in packs. Instead, this game decided to place one wolf every 20 yards, making it impossible to not aggro 4,000 of them when walking through the area. At this point, I still don't understand the spell system, and I still have this stupid cursed axe that I don't want, and lo and behold, I couldn't make it hardly anywhere without dying. I felt like I was in the starting zone of an MMO, but on steroids. In my current quest description, it says that the guy gave me great directions. It literally says that. But last time I checked, if someone asked you where McDonald's is and you said to the north, I don't think they would say thanks for the great directions, unless they're being sarcastic. It was at this point that I didn't want to play anymore. I have only come across one respawn point up to now, so every time I died to a horde of wolves that was mixed in with fire and frost turrets, giants, and other creatures, because apparently everything in the wild is friends with each other, I had to painfully walk all the way back and really had no idea where I was going in the first place. I was already confused as to why I don't have any spells or new abilities, and it just started to become too much. Like I said before, I do enjoy a struggle in a game, but this honestly felt more like bad game design rather than challenging content. So lo and behold, I am done. And here's my conclusion. Because Legends of Dawn Reborn was a re-release and it costs $30, I have to rate it pretty low. It feels a little scammy to still charge $30 for this game with all the obvious issues that it has, and it's pretty obvious that this project has been abandoned at this point, but whoever is running it obviously did not abandon taking money for it. If the price was even just 10 or 15 bucks and the company updated the description to be a little more honest, I mean, come on, picturesque landscapes, really? I would have been able to appreciate it for what it is. And I do think that it had a lot of potential to be a more modern game that speaks to the hearts of some of the classic RPG lovers. It just has too many issues and, in my opinion, some really bad game design decisions. Before I end the video, let's take a quick look at a couple of the top reviews over here on Steam and see if I agree. Once again, Dream Matrix shows that it's perfectly willing to rip people off. I'm actually inclined to kind of agree with this. I mean, I hope that's not the intention, but the fact that the game is $30 and they're not really being honest with what you're getting just kind of bothers me a little bit. Players start out with little guidance and trivial tasks that, when combined with disparagingly slow progression, drives down motivation to play to any depth. Like I said before, I actually like games that have little guidance, but in this case, it just felt like bad game design, and I don't know, there just needed to be more explanations on things that you should know as the player. Not necessarily guiding you through the game, but teaching you the basics so you know how to, what ability scores you should level up, for cripe's sake. Alright. So I was willing to give them another chance, I really was. Sure, they released a hot mess the first time, and as a Kickstarter backer, I'm not eligible for a refund and really had no other choice. But hey, maybe they had learned from their mistakes. You tried, Dream Matrix, but it's really not us, it's you. This game just isn't as good as you want it to be. I would agree. I mean, if they're saying it's the $30 game, it's not worth $30 in my opinion. And you need to go back to the drawing board 100%. This game needs another year of development. Obviously, it's not going to get it. The project has seemingly been abandoned. It just needed more time. And if you can't finish it, just be honest with your product. This is even hotter garbage than before, with the devs trying to pass this off as an updated version of the game. Now, I can't really speak for that because I didn't play the version before, but yeah, for an updated version, it seems to have a lot of problems. All right, so yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know, and I'll try out a couple other games. Let me know below in the comments what some of the worst RPGs you guys think are. I don't think this is the worst RPG ever created. Like I said, I think it has a lot of potential, but for what's being advertised in the price tag, it's just not worth it.